July 1989. For the fans of West Ham United, it wasn't just a transfer, it was a declaration of war. Imagine your hometown hero, the boy who grew up in the shadow of Upton Park, the kid who was supposed to be the future of your club, standing there, smirking, wearing the colours of the enemy before the ink on the contract was even dry. To the East End, Paul Ince wasn't just a traitor, he was Judas in a red jersey. But what if I told you that the photo that destroyed his reputation for a decade was a lie? What if the man labelled a money-grabbing mercenary was actually a victim of a PR stunt gone horribly wrong? Today, we go behind the headlines. We're looking at the life of the man they called the Guv'nor, a man who broke the colour barrier for the England captaincy, survived the vitriol of the Italian ultras, and dared to do the unthinkable, cross the line between Manchester United and Liverpool. This isn't just a football story. This is a story of betrayal, blood, and a relentless search for respect. Paul Ince didn't just play football, he patrolled it. Growing up in Dagenham, you had to be hard. By the time he made his West Ham debut in 1986, he was already a force of nature. He was a box-to-box midfielder before the term was even popular. He had the engine of a Ferrari and the bite of a Rottweiler. He won the Hammer of the Year in '87. He was the golden boy. But when West Ham fell into the second division in 1989, the Sharks began to circle. Alex Ferguson wanted him, and Ince, he wanted greatness. But then came the agent, Ambrose Mendy, a man as flamboyant as he was controversial. He suggested a preemptive photo shoot so Ince could go on holiday without being disturbed. The plan was simple: take the photo, lock it in a vault, and release it once the deal was signed. But in the world of 80s tabloids, there are no secrets. The photo leaked. Ince was still technically a West Ham player. The fans felt a knife in their backs when the transfer hit a snag due to a failed medical. Ince was trapped in a purgatory of hate. He wasn't just leaving, he was being hunted out of London. Ince arrived at Manchester United under a cloud of controversy, but on the pitch, he was the missing piece of Ferguson's puzzle. He wasn't just a midfielder, he was the enforcer. It was during this era that the legend of the Guv'nor was born. Ince started calling himself that because he wanted to be the man in charge. He wanted the responsibility. But there was one problem: Manchester United already had a boss. And his name was Alex Ferguson. The relationship between Ince and Fergie is one of the most misunderstood rivalries in sports. It was a clash of two massive egos. Ferguson loved Ince's talent, but hated his big-time attitude. The trophies piled up: Premier League titles, FA Cups, European silverware. But behind the scenes, the air was thick with tension. Ferguson famously called him a big-time Charlie and a bottler in the dressing room. He felt Ince was drifting too far from his tactical instructions, trying to be the star instead of the soldier. The end didn't come in a boardroom. It happened in a golf club car park in 1995. Ince thought he was there to sign a new deal. Instead, Ferguson told him he'd accepted a bid from Inter Milan. The man who had given his soul to United was being discarded like a used boot. In 1995, Italy's Serie A was the centre of the footballing universe. Ince joined Inter Milan, playing alongside legends like Roberto Carlos and Javier Zanetti. But Italy would test Paul Ince in ways he never imagined. He didn't just face tactical hurdles. He faced a wall of systemic racism. This wasn't subtle. This was thousands of people making monkey chants every time he touched the ball. This was inflatable bananas in the stands. In April 1996, during a match against Cremonese, Ince scored, a moment of triumph. But the air was filled with vile racial slurs. Ince didn't cower. He turned to the crowd and gave them a sarcastic, ironic round of applause. The referee's response: he booked Ince. He was being punished for being the victim. Yet, despite the graffiti on his walls and the abuse in the stands, Ince did what he always did. He won them over. He fought so hard, with such tiger-like tenacity, that the Inter president Massimo Moratti begged him to stay, but Ince had a young son, Thomas. He wanted him to grow up in England. He wanted to go home. When Ince returned to England in 1997, he expected a call from Old Trafford. Manchester United had first refusal. They knew he was available. They never called. So, Ince did the one thing that would ensure he could never walk the streets of Manchester safely again. He signed for Liverpool. To understand the weight of this, you have to realise that no player had moved directly between these clubs since 1964. It's not just a rivalry. It's a blood feud. Ince was made captain of Liverpool immediately. He was the bridge between the Spice Boys and the hard-nosed winners they needed to be. But the defining moment came in May 1999. Manchester United were on the verge of the treble. They came to Anfield needing a win. In the 89th minute, with United leading 2-1, the ball fell to Paul Ince. He smashed it into the back of the net. He didn't just celebrate. He sprinted to the United fans, his former worshippers, and cupped his ear. It was a F***** to Ferguson. It was a F***** to the club that had sold him in a car park. For a moment, he had ruined their dream. But if you want to know who Paul Ince really was, you don't look at the club trophies. You look at October 11th, 1997, Rome. England needed a point against Italy to qualify for the World Cup. It was a gladiator pit. Early in the game, Ince's head was split open. Most players would have gone off. Ince stayed. He played the entire match looking like a casualty from a battlefield. Every header he took sent a spray of blood into the air. He patrolled the midfield like a man possessed. England got the draw. Earlier that year, he had become the first black man to captain England. It was a landmark moment for a country still struggling with its own identity. But Ince didn't want to be the black captain. He wanted to be the best captain. In that blood-stained shirt in Rome, he proved he was exactly that. Paul Ince's career ended not with a bang, but with a series of hard-fought battles in the lower leagues and on the touchline as a manager. 4 years. He was the villain in 3 different stories. To West Ham, he was the traitor. To United, he was the big-time Charlie. To Liverpool, he was the United legend they never quite fully embraced. But as the dust settles, the truth emerges. Paul Ince was a pioneer. He was a man who stood up to the racial vitriol of the 90s when the authorities looked the other way. He was a man who demanded to be the governor because he knew that in a world that wanted to keep him down, he had to be his own boss. He lived through the hate, the blooded bandages, and the car park betrayals. And yet, he stands tall to Premier League titles, to FA Cups, 53 England caps, the first black captain of his country. The controversies may have defined the headlines, but the heart defined the man. Paul Ince didn't just play the game, he survived it. And in the end, that is the mark of a true governor. So, what's your favourite Ince moment? Was he a misunderstood genius, or a man who invited his own drama? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of football's most polarising figures, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories of the beautiful game. Until next time, keep the faith.